Hi, my name is Daniel. I'm an alcoholic who's recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body because of doing the steps out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, okay, I'm going to speak on step 10. A little bit about me before then. When I first came to AA and you would speak at meetings, they'd say, what it was like when I was drinking, what happened, how I got here. Well, probably what I'll talk about is like what happened while I was just drinking and not doing this work, how I got here and what my life is like now after doing the work. Because Alcoholics Anonymous, I was told, will ruin your drinking. Doing the steps out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous will ruin just going to meetings and not drinking. That's my experience anyway. And that's all I'm going to talk about is my experience and not my opinion, I hope. And Anyway, I was someone who was away from a drink or a narcotic for over 10 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I got busy in AA. It wasn't that I wasn't doing anything. I was sponsoring a gazillion people who, by the way, most of them ended up on my amends list. I was active in a group. I did prison meetings for several years. I started meetings. We used to have meetings in my studio out of the 12 and 12. We'd all get revved up talking about reading it, although my sponsor, Jack, used to say, you can stop at death reading the cookbook. And this is a program of action I was taught here. Anyway, at 10 years, to say I was at the jumping off point is an understatement, and I had nowhere else to go. You know what I mean? The only thing that was changing in my life in Alcoholics Anonymous was phone numbers and addresses, and relationships. It just like when I was out there, doing geographical cures and, going out with a new person or doing this or doing that, they were okay for a while. And then until I just would screw it up and I didn't know why, there I was minding my own business and I got screwed again. It was for me, and it was like that stuff that talks about on page, I think it's 63 about, this selfishness that I had that I didn't even know I had. I thought I was like Sir Walter Raleigh with a slight drinking problem, and then I got here. Anyway, I had given up on Alcoholics Anonymous. I was still sponsoring a lot of people. I told them to get new sponsors. I left the group. I was in this Wednesday night group in Plymouth, Massachusetts. I said I won't be coming anymore, and I was still sponsoring one guy, and the only reason I was sponsoring is I used to play a lot of ice hockey, and we were on a couple of teams together, and that's why it wasn't an altruistic thing, believe me. But I ended up on my studio on my knees praying to who I prayed to, like, because the jig was up. The jig was up, and I had nowhere to go. If this didn't work for me, because I knew I see it working in other people's lives. It wasn't working for me. And to say my life was unmanageable is an understatement. The only thing I was doing was not drinking. Anyway, this guy that I was sponsoring, first of all, I had heard some guys at a regular meeting talking about, I got to get to step 10. I'm sorry. I'm spending too much time on this. I heard some guys talking about a blueprint for living, a very specific way of doing these steps. I remember elbowing the guy beside me. I'm like, his name was Lucky, and he was like sober 3 years, and I was sober 10. I'm like, I don't know what this guy's talking about. I never heard this stuff before. Now, they might have been saying it, but I didn't hear it. You know what I mean? They were talking about being rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence, like being able to handle things that I couldn't handle. And I remember thinking, I must have done this. I started meetings. I did this. I did that. But I knew this guy hadn't. And I said, I heard these guys speak, and they read on a Thursday night. Why don't we go there? And I went there, to be honest with you, I went there by trying to help somebody else out, this guy, and we went there. The guy that ended up being my sponsor at the time, Donnie M., was speaking on step 10. I asked him to be my sponsor that night. He did, and I did this work. And that's enough of that. And because of that, I had a spiritual awakening. And my spiritual awakening was the truth about myself. That was my spiritual awakening. The sky didn't open up. I had plenty of those, you know what I mean? And they lasted a day or two. This was different. This was different. The detective was a criminal, like my friend Warren used to say. It was me. It was me. You know, it was what I was, my character defects is what I was doing that I shouldn't have been doing, and my shortcomings, what I wasn't doing that I should have been doing. I wrote it out. So now I did all this work, you know, and, you know, it starts off here. This thought brings us to step 10. You probably heard of this meeting before, you know. What thought? Well, are these extravagant promises where we think not they're being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They'll always materialize if you work for them. That's the thought that they're talking about. That's what I was told. You know, they're reading these promises. I was going to meetings and they're reading these promises. Before we're halfway through the ninth step, under these promises on the top of page 63, that paragraph that says there's all kinds of promises there. If I make that commitment, that covenant, not that commitment with God, but a covenant with God, and it's going to tell me that I'm going to be reborn. I'm going to get a whole new start. Those are the promises that came through in my life when I made that decision. So I did this work, and I searched out the flaws in my makeup that were causing my failure. It was, you know, I saw the truth about myself. You know, I did it what this book said. I shared it with somebody else, God and myself, and it makes me laugh. I went to a meeting the other day. It was one of the regular meetings that I used to go to before. It's a good meeting, don't get me wrong. But listening to these people, it was on step 6. Well, I'm not quite ready. You know, there's some things I still want to hang on to. I didn't want to hang on to anything of the things that I was writing, that I wrote in that book, to tell you the truth. Not at that moment anyway. You know, like there's only 2 paragraphs, 6 and 7. They do them together in this group. You know that if you've been here. And there's only 2 paragraphs because I'm not doing it. I'm just making a decision and taking some action on it. God's going to do it, not me. That's all it has to be. You want to get rid of this stuff or you want to hang on to it. Some of it is gone. Some of it hasn't. I love what my wife says when she talks about this. She's done this process a long time ago too. It's like some of the things that have not been completely removed or come up periodically, and I have to do what I have to do in step 10 to stop them or get rid of them or arrest them, have been useful. When someone calls me down sponsoring or someone's having a tough time, you know, I'm not on some spiritual hilltop. I'm going like, oh my God, I was going through that the other day. I've had the same thing. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I'm not hanging on to them because I want them. And it tells me exactly what to do here. You know, I'm someone who needs a very specific set of instructions. You know, I don't give a shit about your, excuse my language. I don't care about your opinion. I don't care tell me about your experience. Tell me about, you know, like, what do I do? What do I do when this stuff crops up? And it crops up, you know, and it tells me what to do. You know, as soon as this crops up, it doesn't say, I hear people talking about too, like when I go home at night, I do step 10. If I wait till I go home to do step 10, forget about it. You know, then what I'm doing is like, who do I owe an amends to now? Or, you know, or if I go to bed like that, you know, I wake up and I need a nap before I get out of bed. It's like my disease is doing push-ups, like my friend Warren used to say when I'm sleeping. I wake up more angry, you know what I mean, or more self-righteous or this or that and the other thing. So I have to take this nip it right away as soon as it crops up. It tells me what to do. What do? I go to what this book talks about, the one who has all power, because I don't have the power to do it. You know, like, you know, take this away. What do I do? And then if it doesn't go, I call someone immediately. You know what I mean? And I know what to do now too, because it tells me what to do here. What do I look out for? Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. It doesn't even mention self-seeking. Because hopefully if I do this, I'm not going to start doing my dance and start making you become the director like it talks about in step 3. And when I do that, and sometimes it still doesn't go away. So what do? I'll turn your thoughts to someone else you can help. Because truthfully for me, after we're starting with step 3, it tells me, it's not that I think about myself or I think well of myself. I think only of myself if I'm not doing this work. And I don't even know I'm doing it. I think I'm doing you a favor for the most part, you know, in step 3, but move my difficulty. So I'll have a great day and be a good guy. Yeah, sure. remove my difficulties so I can be of use to other people. There's a sick man's prayer, like people that are driving me bananas. Like, this is a sick person. How can I be helpful? I'm thinking about somebody else. It's starting to teach me to teach about somebody else, not think about me constantly. If sex is troublesome, throw yourself all the heart of it to help with somebody else out. What's it that they said? The 7-step prayer is so I can be used to my fellows. I'm supposed to be thinking about somebody in 8, 9. Like, am I going to do more damage here? Am I going to hurt somebody just to make myself feel better and be brought into a fourth dimension existence? So I'm supposed to be constantly thinking about somebody else. And if I do that, it takes, someone told me before, it takes 21 days to get a habit or to lose a habit. If I can do this at a daily basis it's simple. I remember this guy Dale used to talk about that. It's like I'm Superman. I can do things that I couldn't do before. And the more I do it, the more I'm able to. It happened to me today. I was thinking about something. And it's going to sound stupid, so I'm not even going to mention it. But I get bananas. I stepped on something in my studio. I got pissed off at it. I threw it across the room. And then I said, wait a minute, do an inventory on that. This sounds stupid and crazy, I know. But the truth is, the honesty in that is, if I had picked it up and swept the floor, I wouldn't have stepped on it. Do you know what I mean? And I knew it was there. I'll get to it later. I'll pick it up later. So, that's a stupid kind of a little thing. But if I do that in my life, when other things happen to me, if I do that, I'm like, things change. I'm able to do things that I couldn't do before. And I'm away from a drink or narcotic. My sobriety date is January 27, 1976. I've been away from a drink or narcotic for a long time. I did this 39 years ago. There's no finish line here. It's almost like dying and being reincarnated every year. And it's not like I'm screwing up all the time, but I learn a different way of doing things. And every once in a while, I'm like, man, oh man, I handle that differently. I didn't get so pissed off or something, and I only have to do it for one day. That used to be I used to think that was the stupidest thing I ever heard. One day, please. You know what I mean? One day. Come on, one day. That's all I have to do it for. I just have to practice these principles. And when I do this exactly the way it's laid out here, what does it talk about? I've grown in understanding and effectiveness. It even tells me in here, in this step, that if I got something I got to make a decision on, whether it's a big decision, and lately we've had a couple of them. What do I do? It's never like 6 reasons I should do it this way, and 5 reasons I should do it that way. And 4 reasons or something, whatever it is. It's always like 5 reasons I should do it this way, and 5 reasons I should do it that way. And it's like, so what do I do? What do I do? It's simple. You ask God, and you relax, and don't think about it anymore. And when I do that, all of a sudden, I just seem to. I don't do it right all the time, but every once in a while I do. Jesus, I don't usually do things like that. I'm the grouch in the brainstorm. I'm the banana head that has to, that does something, and little things I do differently now. When I'm fixing things, instead of breaking things, I used to break more things instead of, wait a minute, I get an idea. Let's read the instructions on how to do this. Or let's get a tool that'll actually work instead of, trying to open it with a stick. Let's get a screwdriver. Do you know what I mean? I do things differently now once in a while. It also talks in here about the sixth sense that we'll start to experience. My sponsor Jack used to talk about that. It's like we got these 5 senses. And the sixth sense is different. It's different. It's like it comes in. It's not like it's just you just know. You just know this is right. I'll think about somebody and I'll call them and I'll say, Jesus, I really needed to hear from you. Or I was just thinking about you. I'm going to call you. That's a small example, but I'm doing things right more than I used to do things right. and it's, I hear people say, well, I live on 10, 11, and 12. Well, okay, you live on 10, 11, and 12, because if you're doing step 10, you're doing all the other ones. You're doing step 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You know what I mean? They're all in there. You're not living on step 10 and 11 and 12. You're living on all the steps that you've previously done. I shouldn't say you, me. That's the only one I know about. And anyway, so I don't know what else I can say about this. If you're new here, I did this like 39 years ago. I've never seen anybody do this work and try to practice these principles in all their fields and not be a success. I've seen them go through stuff that I don't want to go through. You know what I mean? But I've seen them be able. I have not once. I've seen what's happened to people that don't do it. I've gone to some of their wakes, and these were guys that were busy in this program. Just because I have all this synthetic knowledge about myself, and I have all this perfect blueprint for living, and these very specific instructions, because that's what I need. I study a form of meditation. I'm not going to bore you with that, but it's a very specific way of doing something. That's what this. My mother, Gilda, should have been given this book when I was a little kid. Here, this kid's going to need this book. Everything he needs to be able to handle things that he can't handle without alcohol and narcotics or whatever. Anyway, I don't know what else to tell you about this. If you're here, think about it. Like if this doesn't work for you, see ya. You know what I mean? Go. Maybe it's something else. Maybe something else will work. You know what I mean? It doesn't. There's no contracts here. There's no nothing. There's no nothing here. But if you're gonna be here, if you're gonna be an Alcoholics Anonymous and you're gonna stop drinking, stop drinking. Like Bobby from our group says, that's the ante. You want to get into the game? Stop drinking. That's the ante to get into the game. You want to play? You're gonna have to put up something. And what are you gonna put up? You're gonna put up a bunch of crap that you don't need. Is what you're gonna do to win. That's banana. That's nuts. Anyways, I'm done. I'm all done.